I know that was a wimpy howl. That's okay. Because we're not wimpies. Good morning. Good morning. We're getting a tiny bit of a late start, but we're mostly on time. And for everybody in the back, if you could take a seat as soon as you can, and we will have packets for you later. T-shirt exchanges, whatever you want to do. I'm Maureen Hackett. I started Howling For Wolves in 2012, okay? Today is March 23rd. Today, March 23rd, begins our 5th year. We basically became an incorporated organization with the state of Minnesota on March 22nd, 2012 officially, so the 23rd we are into our 5th year. So welcome. It's really, I say this every time, I mean it every time. If you weren't here, we wouldn't be here. If you weren't here, this wouldn't be an event. It doesn't matter how many groups I were to form, it's a matter of us, and you guys are here. And that takes a lot. I mean, think about it. How many issues bring you to the Capitol? Probably not many. And that's maybe the one thing that I want to really emphasize today. You are representing about at least 1,000 people, because there are so many people that agree with each and every one of you, but they just they couldn't come for some reason. They might live really far away, they may be disabled, they may have some other obligations, but they wanted to be here, but you're here and you're representing them. So today, our whole goal is to show the legislators what nice people wolf people are. Yeah, we're nice. And emphasize to them that this means a lot to you and to many of their constituents. You're representing one. And if anybody ever sort of questions how much the public is behind you, just remember Cecil the lion, right? Do you remember within 2 days we had 200,000 signers onto the whitehouse.gov petition regarding our own native son, we won't call him native son, but resident who killed Cecil the lion. Anyway, the other people that are here today is a group from a company called Lush. Lush is a cosmetic company and bath and body products that are all very natural, and some of them just smell delicious too. And Lush, for the second time, is giving us a grant. And it's pretty much unrestricted to use for what we're doing today in terms of lobbying, legislating, talking to our legislators, educating our legislators. So we thank Lush, and I just want to let you know that they did not ask for anything in return, no plugs of products or anything, but I have been using the Daddy-O shampoo for years now. And it's really good for blondes. Daddy-O. Okay. There's another person here named Joe Wolf, and he didn't change his name. He is one of our board members, a very important board member. And Joe Wolf, maybe wave your cane or something. He hurt his ankle. He doesn't normally have to use a cane, but he hurt his ankle, and so if you see him walking anywhere, make sure you get that shuttle to pick him up, because we picked him up today, and I told him we're going to drop him off right where he was parked. Joe is very important. Joe and I went to Washington, D.C. 3 times last year. The whole thing that we did last year, now I don't have much more time, so I better keep going. So we all know we support wolves. The legislators respond to a few good reasons. I would say telling them that we have the largest, don't emphasize we have the last remaining wolves, no, we have the largest and only original population that never went extinct, and we want to keep it that way, our wolves. Also, wolves are a critical part of the ecosystem, but legislators, they need one little snippet. So you say, wolves help trees grow. Wolves are good for plants. Wolves are good for vegetation. And then the other day, I just want to let you know how the world is kind of in sync with the wolves. In the Star Tribune, they posted a Washington Post article about how did that dog end up at the end of our leashes? Meaning, how did we as a civilization evolve to have an animal domesticated? The first domesticated animal for man that we have evidence of is the wolf. The wolf became our dogs. And if we look at the history, which Oxford University is embarking on a very large project this year to look at the history of the domestication, the morphology, the anthropology of the wolf to the domestic dog. Just this year, they're going to go through all these DNA analyses and all this study. If we didn't have wild wolves now, it wouldn't really mean that much, would it? So when you get arguments about are there enough wolves to kill, or are there too many wolves, or this or that, you just say, you know what, we really don't know very much about wild wolves. We haven't let them live in the wild. And we don't even know anything about their biological genetic diversity that's going to be required to move them into the future. You know, it's very important to our species, man, to know more about our civilization by keeping these wild animals that keep our wilderness wild alive. It's important to have the species. We just brought them back. We don't need to hunt them. So that's what we say. Anyway, so today I meant to go through a little bit more of an overview. We were going to have some legislators come over and speak, but they're actually very involved in a few hearings that we actually want them to stay involved in. Yvonne Seltzer was going to come over, but she's voting on a bill involving lead shot, so it's very important that she's there to remove lead shot out of bullets. And then Senator Eaton was going to come over, but she's in a tax committee. So instead, you have me and you have Barry Babcock, and between the two of us, I think you'll find this quite interesting. Our goal also will be to go through the legislative agenda, and I will do that after Barry speaks. But let me tell you a little bit about what's been going on. We started here in 2012, just me and a few people, and started the group, and had an amendment introduced into the Senate in 2012 to the Game and Fish Bill to restore the 5-year moratorium back into law. That is how, on the wolf hunt, that's how Howling for Wolves started. We did get a vote. So, you know, we started a group, got a vote, got an amendment. I mean, that was pretty fast, all within about 2 months. This is our 5th year here. So when I have a legislator say, you know, well, it takes time or this or that, I think reminding them that we've been here now for 5 years isn't a bad thing. Also, I want to let you know that today you want to be like channeling the humility of the wolf. In the Anishinaabe culture, they talk about the wolf, Brother Maingan, and representing humility. And because they're always looking for flaws in us, and they're always looking for flaws in the wolf, right? No other animal is judged as harshly as the wolf and treated so unfairly. So our goal is to sort of just kill them with kindness, because we really only have that as one of our tools. Howling for Wolves will come back and tell you, hey guys, make phone calls, and then they hate that, and we'll do that. Or we'll buy media, we'll buy billboards, we'll get aggressive. But today, you want them to leave that meeting with, oh, those wolf people, they're not so bad. Or, oh, they're kind of nice. Or, oh, maybe I'll ask that person a question I just thought of. That's what you want. At the federal legislative level, the wolves are still listed as threatened. We managed to stave off a rider on an appropriations budget bill in December, so the wolves are still protected. We know that there are many efforts still being made to delist the wolf in the federal government, by Congress, by the Republican majority in the House and in the Senate, and some of our own senators from this state who seem to not understand the situation of the wolf. But we have the White House on our side, and the reason I say that is the White House has put out statements where they kind of mentioned the wolf, where they don't want to reduce the Endangered Species Act, they don't want to use Congress to delist animals, they want to use best available science, they don't want to use laws that don't have judicial review because of the separation of powers issue. The White House has put out written statements about these where they do mention the wolf. So, and also, I know this sounds maybe a little crazy and it's not necessarily evidence that we have the White House on our side, but the president doesn't have to sign any of the bills coming up. the SHARE Act, none of them. The energy bill, maybe if there's a Flint water issue. So we had the best victory when we got that appropriations budget signed into law without the rider. And now, it's going to take a veto over, they're going to have to get enough votes on any bill at the federal level that the president can't veto it. And most of the bills, they just can't help themselves. They keep loading them with really bad environmental issues, not just bad for the wolf. So at the federal level, we're doing pretty well. And we know the White House is standing with the environment, and I believe with the wolf. We even got a holiday card signed personally, addressed to Howling For Wolves, signed personally by Barack Obama and Michelle Obama. Okay? So I'm pretty confident that the White House, at least through the rest of the year, as long as the bill is not a must pass, and as long as they have enough signers to say no on the Democratic side that the president can veto the bill, I think we're doing pretty well. So we've got to fight it at the state level, and we'll talk about that after Barry speaks. Barry Babcock is a woodsman, a man of the earth. Come on up here, Barry. And where is he? Come on. And a writer. He just has a book that is about to be published. I don't know if he's come up with the name yet. I have some ideas. But one of the things that Barry really understands is true wild wilderness. Barry Babcock.
Well, it's probably a good thing I don't come down here too often. Some of you out there had problems with the meter out there. I put my credit card in the cash slot, so nobody knew. So anyhow, when you meet with your legislators today, can everybody hear me okay? When you meet with your legislators today, there's some things that I wanted to mention here that you might want to keep in mind. The things that usually we hear about from legislators and anti-wolf people is the deer population and livestock. As far as the deer population goes, and I say this as a person who's been hunting white-tailed deer in Minnesota for over 50 years, that right now, at this period of time, from about the year 2001 up to present, this is the golden age of deer hunting in Minnesota, northern Minnesota. There's more deer right now in northern Minnesota than we've ever had in history. If you talk to any responsible hunter out there who doesn't spend his day with his ass parked on an ATV, he'll tell you that same thing. The DNR for the last decade has estimated that closer? Okay. That there's been, for at least a decade, maybe more than a decade now, I think probably going on 15 years, that the deer population in northern Minnesota has varied between 1 million and 1.25 million. When I first started hunting deer in the mid-60s, the DNR would talk about deer density of being like 10, 12 deer per section. Right now we're looking at 20 to 30 deer per section. That's a very considerable increase. Dr. Lee Freilich, forest ecologist from the University of Minnesota, says that our forests are very, very jeopardized. That within 100 years, the southern edge of the forest may be on line with Thunder Bay, Ontario. He says climate change is the #1 reason. The #2 reason is an overpopulated white-tailed deer herd. Yet we have a group in Minnesota, an organization called the Minnesota Deer Hunters Association, which only has like 15,000 to 20,000 members out of nearly 500,000 deer hunters, who are dictating policy about deer hunting. They were principally one of the agencies that was behind the wolf hunt in 2012. But anyhow, there's a whole lot of deer in Minnesota. In fact, one thing, Paul Thielander, the head of wildlife from the DNR, when wolves were relisted again in December of 2014, was it, or 15? I get the years mixed up. I heard him on public radio saying that, well, we have the greatest wolf density in Minnesota than anywhere else in North America. Like somehow that's a reason for hunting wolves. Deer, the reason we have that many wolves in Minnesota is because of the prey base out there, because we've got so many deer. If say just for instance, you wanted to get the wolf population down, the way to do it isn't to go out and hunt them, to shoot them, it would be to reduce our deer population. Any predator population is based solely on their prey base, and that's why we've got the wolves that we have, is because we're overpopulated with deer. This is just exceptional, all the deer we have. It's extraordinary. They're overpopulated. And when you look at, when Thielander says the saturation of wolves and deer is so great, just remember that when you're talking to legislators today and how many deer there really are. And our public agencies, like the DNR, the main problem with it is they've gotten so market-based. This wolf hunt is all about selling licenses and a recreation industrial complex. What I like to call the recreation industrial complex is big timber, it's Cabela's, Gander Mountain. When I first started deer hunting, you know, we'd go to a holiday station. In fact, they weren't holiday then, it was Erickson's. We'd buy our shelves. Now, these Cabela's and Gander Mountain have Sears Roebuck-sized catalogs now, with like just 50 pages of camouflage clothing. It's a huge industry out there. And they're not concerned about the old idea that hunters had one bullet, one buck, fair chase, the goal light idea. Now it's all about, like, I saw a bumper sticker once that says, "He who dies with the most toys wins." That's what hunting's come all about. It's what it's about today. It's about hunters spending all their time in Cabela's and Gander Mountain, not out in the woods. I got deer hunters around me that don't know the difference between a red oak and a bur oak. I tell them there aren't any acorns in the red oaks this year. If you want to get deer hunting the bur oaks, they go, "How do you tell the difference?" Maybe instead of spending so much time with these gadgets and contraptions, maybe they ought to spend a little bit more time in the woods. The second thing that you're going to hear about, that you want to keep in mind when you're meeting with legislators today, is the livestock issue. Our friend Dwayne Morphew put some real good statistics together here. In 2014, these are USDA figures, there was 2,300,000 cows and calves in Minnesota. That's a lot. And of that 2,300,000, there was 87 cows and calves that were predated on. 63 of them were calves, the rest were adult cows. That means that if you've got livestock in Minnesota, you have a 0.0038% chance of having one of your livestock being, if you got a cow or a calf, being hunted by a wolf. And I think those numbers, when I first heard about these livestock predations, I was stunned that it was as small as it is. When you look at where most of the cows are in Minnesota, Cass County, for instance, in the heart of wolf country, produces more calves every year than any other county in the state. Northern Minnesota is cattle country. Most of the farmers in southern Minnesota, it's in the soybeans and corn. So remember that. And also, too, in 2011, before the wolves, the last year before the wolves were delisted, the USDA said that if livestock, that was a 1.7% chance, if you had a farm, that there'd be livestock predated. That included geese, cows, dogs, llamas. So, you know, this livestock thing is not a big deal. And, you know, 2 minutes. One thing I wanted to talk about here, that's the third problem I've had answering, is these so-called ethical hunters that want to maintain a wolf population, but they want to still be able to hunt them so that they can get a rug to put on their wall. I've always had, it's been difficult for me to answer that. And I think back when my wife and I had a motel, we were cleaning rooms and I had the TV on once, and there was a scene there, like from an old 8mm camera, it might have been locally here. They had laced a dead deer with some type of poison, arsenic or strychnine, and there was like maybe a dozen dead wolves laying around. And they were come up with a wagon behind a tractor, and they were loading them up like cordwood. And as one of them loaded what looked like a large male around his neck, I could see it was still conscious, and it lifted its head. And I thought, God, that is a cosmic sin. And you know, what we've done with wolves for thousands of years is, what I like to look at it now is think about it, since we think in terms of economics, we've created a great debt, moral debt in our society. And the interest has just been growing and growing on that debt. They say when you find yourself in a hole, the first thing is to stop digging. The time has come where we've got to start thinking about not just wolves, but our natural ecosystems in terms of ethics and morals. And the first place to start was with the wolf, and that is no more killing of wolves. Wolves don't need it. We don't need to have a wolf hanging on the wall. So my time is up.
Thank you. You know, Barry's right. What I said to Representative Rick Nolan, I don't know if he heard it, but I said, if you choose the wolf, all the other environmental issues become clear. The wolf is the tip on the spear of our ecological health. The wolf is on the spear of our political battle, really. If you let go of the wolf and say, well, you know, give them the wolf and we'll keep our water issues, or we'll keep this. No, you're taking apart that cornerstone. You're taking away that leadership. You're taking away that ethical guide. You're taking away everything which is really about us and about tolerance and about inclusiveness, and having all the species that are here now, as many as we can keep, stay here, right? We're losing enough of them. So on that note, we'll talk about the legislative agenda. In the state House and Senate, the Republicans control the House. The Democrats control the Senate. We have the governor as a Democrat. Right now, at the federal level, we think wolves will stay protected, but we've got to fight. But at the state level, we want to say, look, it makes sense to repeal the hunt. The hunt was rushed. The hunt went forward 3 consecutive times, and it was the hunt that was really responsible for the wolf being placed back on the endangered species list. The judge really did take note of the fact we have a hunt and we have unregulated hunting, essentially a lot of killing of wolves throughout the state. We have to stay on top of our DNR, we have to stay on top of the livestock predation issues, and we will as an organization. But the first thing we need to do is quit digging a hole and stop the hunt. Repeal the hunt. Tell the legislators, look, if somebody wants a hunt, they can bring it back to the legislature. But right now, it was a bad start. It was a false start. It was a stumble out of the starting block of having state, we won't even use the word management, having state responsibility for the wolf. So we are and do have a bill to repeal the wolf hunt. It just says there will be no public taking of wolves. It's very simple language. Senator Eaton, I believe, Senator Dibble, and was it Senator Scalzi that authored that bill? There were 3 authors, and then their co-authors had filled up too. Senator Uyghur, Dibble, and Eaton, and the co-authors, I believe, were Scalzi and Sieben. And so we do have that bill, and we may have to introduce it as an amendment. But today, in the legislative agenda, you have it in your folder on the back page of, let's see. Okay, where it says the wolf is Minnesota's lion, on the back page we have the legislative agenda, and in orange, we're saying remove the automatic wolf hunting, trophy wolf hunt. Okay, so that's one of the asks, and I'm going to have Leslie show you other things in your packet, but there is going to be a question on your survey about how your legislator responded to your question about whether they would support repealing the wolf hunt. Try to listen carefully to what they say. Try to take down what they say. It helps us. This is a schmoozing and a reconnaissance mission at the same time for you. This is politics. This is hardball. Okay, so be nice, so they have nothing that they can say you did wrong, but you listen carefully to what they say. And try not to argue with them if they have, but take down what their issues are so we know how to come back to them. Okay? So that's one of the issues on the legislative agenda. The other one is, you know, we hate trapping, period. I do. I've never made it a secret, but we can dial back the most egregious trapping, and that is snaring. Snaring is incredibly indiscriminate. It's non-targeted, kills many dogs, injures pheasants, which is very important to our governor, injures wolves, which is they are an endangered species, and kills them. Even if they're not targeted, a coyote snare will kill a wolf. Injures other wildlife, including moose. There's actually a video of a moose dying with a snare around its snout, and songbirds. So we want to get rid of wildlife snaring, and you can make it clear that it's a wire noose. If it got their dog, they wouldn't even know that there was a wire noose around their neck. They dig so deep, power snares. You won't even see it. You'd have to really feel really hard to know your dog had a snare around their neck. You might think he's having an epileptic fit if it got caught, and they died that fast. So we want to eliminate snaring, and we want to require written permission if somebody wants to trap on someone else's land. Instead of having to have things posted, you know, no trespassing, that's how people have to post their land now if they don't want somebody hunting or trapping on their land. We say, no. You want to trap on somebody's land, you have to get written permission. And there are 20 other states that have that. You will see that is on this legislative agenda. Require written permission to trap on private property, eliminate snaring, a type of trapping that uses cheap wire nooses. They put hundreds of wire nooses out when you have snaring. At least when you have a foothold trap, they're much more expensive. They don't use as many. They're much harder to see, much harder to regulate, and they're much less discriminate. So that's the agenda. The other issue is we are trying to support smart, non-lethal methods and strategies to prevent conflicts, including getting the Minnesota farmers to actually, or the Minnesota Department of Agriculture, actually apply for federal money that's available. They haven't done that. Okay, so that's the legislative agenda, and before Leslie comes up, I want a photo of everybody waving, so I'm going to put the microphone down. And everybody, I want you to just all wave. Woo.